It was a Saturday morning. The sky was clear. The horses were grazing peacefully, and I had just stepped out to feed the dogs when I saw a man in a navy blue outfit walking up the dusty gravel road that led to the front gate of my ranch. At first glance, he looked like any regular cop. Dark shades, shiny badge, baton, and all. But something about him was off. Real law enforcement officers don't come stomping up someone's private ranch road in combat boots with no backup or cruiser in sight. This guy was solo, and he was trying way too hard to look official. Then he did it. He knocked on my gate, actually banged on it, and shouted loud enough for the horses to jump. "Open up, HO enforcement officer. You're in violation. HO enforcement on my private ranch." That was the exact moment I knew something shady was happening. I wasn't under any HO. I'd made absolutely sure of that when I bought this property 15 years ago, specifically to avoid this kind of nonsense. Still, I didn't open the gate just yet. I stood there behind the barn wall, watching through the security camera monitor hooked up inside the tack room. The man was pacing, tugging at the heavy belt on his waist like it weighed 100 pounds. That belt had handcuffs, a baton, pepper spray, and a fake badge clipped to the front. From where I stood, I zoomed in on the badge with my camera. I smiled. "Big mistake, buddy. Because I'm not just a rancher. I'm not just some ex-farmer trying to live a quiet life out in Texas country. I'm the chief of police for the entire county. And this clown just showed up at my front gate pretending to be a cop." I walked back out, calm as ever, unlocked the main gate remotely with the push of a button, and watched him step in, thinking he had won. I let him walk 10 steps onto my land before I stepped into view. I said only 4 words. "You picked the wrong ranch." His jaw dropped when he recognized my face. I wasn't in uniform, but you don't forget a face you've probably seen on county billboards, TV news, and wanted posters. And right then, he knew something was wrong, but it was already too late. "Mind showing me some ID?" I asked with a calm smile, my arms crossed. He hesitated. I took 1 step forward and he turned and ran right into my backup patrol truck that had just rolled up behind him without a sound. As 2 of my deputies stepped out, weapons holstered, but hands ready, the fake cop froze like a deer caught in headlights. He started stammering, but we didn't say a word yet. And just as we were about to question him, he pulled something from his pocket and screamed, "I know my rights," and tried to bolt into the woods. That's where we'll pick up in the next chapter. Now let's go back to how all of this even started. My name is Thomas Walker, but most folks call me Chief Walker or just Chief. I've been in law enforcement for 35 years, and I've seen a lot. Bank robbers, cartels, insider corruption, even stage accidents. But I never thought I'd be dealing with fake HOA cops trying to run scams in my own backyard. I bought this ranch 15 years ago after retiring from my first big post as a detective in Austin. I wanted peace. I wanted my horses, my rescue dogs, my workshop, and a stretch of land where my grandkids could run free without some neighborhood committee telling me what color my barn should be. At first, everything was calm. My closest neighbor, Brian, lives about half a mile east. He's a retired firefighter with a bad back and a good heart. Then there's Carol, the widow who lives north of me. Her late husband was also a sheriff's deputy back in the day, so we've always looked out for each other. But 3 months ago, things started changing. A new HOA called Green Valley Community suddenly started posting notices on some of the properties around here, claiming they were expanding their residential jurisdiction. They tried it with Brian, then Carol. Both of them shut it down quickly. But then Carol called me one evening, clearly rattled. "Tom," she said, her voice shaking, "a man in uniform came to my door saying I owed HOA dues, but it didn't feel right." I paid her a visit, reviewed her footage, and sure enough, it was someone in a fake badge and a dollar store costume trying to look official. I notified the sheriff's office. They started looking into it, but there was no real lead yet. That's when I got angry. I set up extra security cameras, motion lights, and even some pressure sensors at the entrance gate. If they came for me next, I wanted to be ready. And sure enough, this morning, they came. Now back to today. After we secured the fake officer and took his gear, we started going through his bag. No police ID, just HOA papers with a forged seal that looked like it had been printed on a school printer. His walkie-talkie was just a toy. His baton was plastic. His badge, a modified mall cop badge with HOA compliance scratched onto it. But things took a strange turn when one of my deputies, Rachel, found a folded map tucked into his waistband. It wasn't just any map. It had marks, red circles on properties all across the county, including my ranch, Brian's, Carol's, even some homes 5 miles away, and the words scrolled in black ink across the top. Target non-compliant. We all looked at each other in disbelief. This wasn't just a prank. This was coordinated. I pulled Rachel aside. "Call in the state," I said. "We may have a ring." While we made arrangements to transport the man to the station for formal questioning, I noticed a silver SUV parked by the edge of the forest, barely visible. I motioned to my other deputy, Jamal. "We're not alone," he nodded. We started walking slowly toward the SUV, but before we got halfway there, the SUV roared to life and sped off. Tires spitting gravel and dust into the morning air. We didn't chase, but now I knew this went deeper, and someone didn't want us finding out just how far. So I made a call. "Activate the emergency drone team. I want eyes in the sky." And just as the drone took off into the sky, my phone buzzed. It was Brian. He was whispering, frantic. "Tom, there's a man outside my barn dressed like that same guy. He's holding a clipboard and talking to someone on a headset. I think I'm being watched." And just like that, we had another target in play. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to know how far this story's reaching. And always remember, stay kind, stay alert, and never underestimate the power of knowing your rights. I didn't waste a second. As soon as Brian whispered those words, "I think I'm being watched," I barked into my radio. "Unit 6, shift focus to Walker East Sector, Brian's Ranch. Go silent. No sirens." Jamal, my sharpest deputy, hopped into his patrol truck and disappeared down the dirt road in a trail of quiet dust. Meanwhile, I jumped into my SUV and punched in the surveillance feed from Brian's property. I had helped him install cameras after Carol's scare, and they synced to my system as backup. What I saw chilled me to the bone. A second fake officer, dressed almost exactly like the first one, same Navy shirt, same HOA enforcement, stitched onto a patch, same crooked badge. Only this guy was bulkier and carried what looked like a clipboard, but it wasn't paper on it. It was a mounted tablet. He was walking around Brian's barn, taking pictures and muttering into a Bluetooth earpiece. Brian stayed hidden inside, watching from the attic window. "Smart man," I radioed Rachel. "This isn't random. They're casing properties with the same pattern. Back at my ranch, the first suspect, let's call him Fake Cop 1, was already handcuffed and sweating bullets in the back seat of my deputy's cruiser. We hadn't interrogated him yet, but I had a feeling this was a much bigger scam than we thought. And now that another fake had shown up at Brian's, I wasn't taking any chances. By the time I got to Brian's, Jamal had already parked at the back end of the property, approaching from the woods with stealth. I rolled up behind the trees on the opposite side and stepped out silent. Jamal made eye contact with me and nodded. We had him cornered. The fake officer was still snooping around now, pointing at the solar panels Brian had installed a few months ago. He was filming them with his phone. That's when I stepped out and yelled, "Hey, step away from the barn. Hands where I can see them." He froze, but then he did something I didn't expect. He laughed. "I was just doing an inspection," he said calmly, turning toward me. "Your friend here is in violation of Green Valley HOA policies regarding external structures exceeding regulation height." I nearly lost it. "Green Valley HOA doesn't even cover this region," I said sharply, "and you're trespassing. Identify yourself now." But instead of obeying, he reached into his vest too fast, and both Jamal and I pulled our weapons in an instant. "Don't!" I yelled. "Slow! Hands out now!" Out came a business card. He tossed it onto the ground with a smirk. "Fine, call my supervisor." Jamal cuffed him before he could even blink. The guy resisted, but Jamal's built like a linebacker. It was over in seconds. We took his phone, the tablet, and his gear, and something in his bag made my stomach drop. It was a thick black binder with GPS coordinates, HOA bylaws, most of which were completely made up, and forged signatures from homeowners I personally knew. He even had printed out citations, fake HOA tickets with official-looking barcodes, and amounts ranging from $500 to $3,500. This wasn't petty. This was fraud. Full-blown organized fraud. We brought him back to the station to join his partner in separate holding rooms. That night I didn't sleep. I stayed at my office going over every note, every photo, every log we had collected. My gut told me something more dangerous was coming, and I was right. The next morning I got a call from Carol. Her voice was trembling. "Chief, I found something taped to my back door." I asked her to take a photo and send it to me. When I opened the message, I nearly dropped my coffee. It was a red envelope. Inside, typed in bold capital letters, it read, "Comply or be condemned. This is your final warning." I immediately dispatched 2 units to her property and headed there myself. Carol greeted me at the door, her hands shaking. "I think they were here last night. My dog didn't stop barking for hours." I checked the footage. 2 hooded figures. No uniforms this time, just masks, gloves, and flashlights. They walked the perimeter, circled the barn, and left the envelope taped to her back porch. They never tried to enter, but they made sure to look right into the cameras, like they wanted us to know they were watching. That changed everything. I called in a full investigation unit and escalated it to a federal report. We now had organized impersonators, forged government documents, attempted extortion, property stalking, and what appeared to be intimidation tactics against the elderly. This was no longer about fake HOAs. This was a network. Later that evening, while reviewing the surveillance stills from Carol's place, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Rachel. "You need to come outside. We have something." I stepped into the parking lot of the station and froze. Parked right outside, bold and unbothered, was a black SUV with the words Green Valley Enforcement Unit slapped across the side. 3 more people stepped out. 2 men, 1 woman, all wearing the same fake uniforms. Only this time they were recording us. They had a camera crew and a megaphone. One of the men shouted, "We're here to issue a violation to the chief of police for non-compliance with community codes." This is now public record. I laughed in disbelief. These people had lost their minds. But then I noticed something terrifying. The crowd, about a dozen people, had started gathering on the sidewalk, watching, recording, and some of them were cheering for the fake HOA team. That's when I realized they weren't just criminals. They were running a scam on a massive scale, and some people actually believed it was real. Before I could order an arrest, one of the men stepped toward the gate holding something shiny. At first, I thought it was a fake badge. Then I realized it wasn't a badge. It was a taser. He lifted it and fired toward Rachel. The crackling sound of the taser fired through the air, slicing through the stunned silence like a bolt of lightning. Rachel barely had time to react, but thank God for her instincts. She sidestepped just as the prong zipped past her shoulder and struck the patrol car behind her, sparking on the metal frame. The crowd gasped. Some ducked, others kept filming, their phones locked onto the chaos unfolding in front of the police department. I didn't even yell. I just moved. In 2 long strides, I tackled the man who fired the taser, pinning him to the asphalt before he could lift it again. Rachel swept in, weapon drawn, covering the 2 others who had frozen in place like mannequins at a yard sale. Jamal and 2 more deputies rushed out the front door, weapons ready but held low. "Down, hands on your head," I roared. My knee pressed into the back of the guy with the taser. The man under me started whining. "We have a right. This is civil enforcement." "Tell that to the felony charges you're about to face," I snapped. Within 2 minutes, all 3 were cuffed and disarmed. We recovered 2 more tasers, pepper spray, a clipboard of HOA citations, and a duffel bag filled with fake IDs, logos, and video equipment. But that wasn't the worst part. As Rachel searched the female suspect's bag, she pulled out a small tablet, and what she found inside hit us all hard. It contained live camera feeds from multiple private properties, not just ours, not just Carol's. Dozens, backyards, driveways, barns, bedrooms. Hidden cams had been planted across homes all over the region. These people weren't just frauds, they were spying. "Chief," Rachel said, her voice tight, "I think they've been at this for a long time." That evening, we booked them and started interrogations separately. It took hours, but the story started to unravel like a cheap sweater. The woman, Sierra James, finally cracked. She wasn't just some flunky in a fake HOA costume. She was one of the co-founders of something she called the Community Shield program. It was a scam disguised as neighborhood enforcement, claiming to help residents restore order to rural and suburban areas left unguarded by weak law enforcement. Their goal? Simple. Create a fake HOA, intimidate people, issue fake citations, install unauthorized cameras, then collect compliance fees through threats and public shaming videos. They'd upload clips online and shame homeowners into paying out of fear, embarrassment, or legal confusion. Sierra and her crew had hit over 40 properties already. They were trying to look legit, act like enforcers, but they had no legal standing, just a well-organized fraud ring built on fear and ignorance. I sat back in my chair in the interrogation room, arms crossed, staring at her. "You do realize who I am, right?" I asked. She gave a smirk that faltered halfway. "Yeah," she muttered. "That's why we were warned to avoid you." I raised a brow. "Warned by who?" Sierra paused and then said one word that made my skin crawl. "Denton." Now that name I knew. Ray Denton, a former real estate speculator with a reputation for shady deals, shell companies, and vanishing investors. He had been in the wind for years after skipping town with millions in illegal HOA funds in another county. I stood up slowly. If Denton was behind this, then this wasn't just a scam. It was a revenge operation, and I had just stepped into the middle of a hornet's nest. Before I left the station, I made 2 more calls to the state attorney general's office, informing them that we were now looking at a large-scale case involving impersonation, fraud, and illegal surveillance. To a federal contact I hadn't spoken to in years. "You still run cybercrime investigations out of Dallas?" I asked. "Still do," he replied. "You got something?" "I got a spider web," I told him, "and I just caught one of the legs." The next morning I visited Carol and Brian in person to update them. Carol had barely slept, but she was relieved when I told her the suspects were behind bars. Brian, however, had news of his own. "Tom," he said, stepping out onto his porch and handing me a small black box. "I found this hidden under my gutter. It's a camera, one of those fancy motion ones." I turned the box over in my hand. No serial number, no brand, nothing. Exactly the kind of tool a creep like Denton would use. "They were watching us for a while," Brian said. "Weren't they?" I nodded grimly. "They were gathering dirt, mapping properties, preparing takedowns." He sat down heavily on his rocking chair. "They would have kept going if that fake cop hadn't shown up at your gate first." I looked out at the horizon of the ranches, the land we all loved and fought for, and I realized something. This wasn't about just exposing Denton and his crew. This was about protecting people like Carol and Brian from ever being targeted again. But just as I started to feel a sense of control again, Jamal burst through the gate at the ranch, holding a printed email. "Chief, you need to see this." It was from the county records department. Subject: emergency notice of HO compliance investigation. Your property flagged for non-payment. But this time, it had my real name and official county records attached. Someone had accessed protected government databases. They weren't just scammers anymore. They had inside help, and now they were targeting me directly. What happens next will shake everything. And before we continue, where are y'all watching from? Let me know in the comments. And remember, if someone claims their HOA and shows up at your door, always ask for ID. Better yet, know your rights and don't back down. The moment I read that forged email, something shifted in my gut. I'd seen this kind of precision before, but only in cases involving high-level insiders. This wasn't just some crook with a fake badge anymore. Someone had pulled confidential information from the county's internal property records. That system was supposed to be locked down with state-level firewalls. But this email had everything. My full name, the legal description of my ranch, the deed registration number, even the exact layout of my home down to room counts and square footage. Whoever sent this wasn't guessing. They had access. I looked up at Jamal, who stood tense with his jaw clenched. "Where did it come from?" he replied. "Spoof server. Looks like the sender's masked like it came from the county itself. But Rachel's tracing the headers now." Inside, I could already feel the storm forming. If they could fake a violation notice with my personal county file attached, they could do it to anyone and people would believe it. I headed straight to our internal cybersecurity office. Rachel was already at her workstation, fingers flying over the keyboard, decoding lines of gibberish that only made sense to someone like her. "Talk to me," I said. I traced the IP trail. It bounced between 5 ghost servers, but I'm narrowing it down. The access was real. Someone logged into the county record system using credentials from the Department of Planning and Development. I frowned. "That department's upstairs." "I know," she said, "which means someone with a badge got paid off or someone in the system is working with them." I took a deep breath and leaned back. That's when Rachel froze. "Chief, what is it?" She turned the screen toward me. They accessed all the flagged ranches and homes, including Carol's and Brian's. Then she clicked the last tab open. "And they've marked 2 more properties in for tonight." I leaned forward to read the addresses. One was just outside county lines. An older man named George Simmons, a Vietnam vet who kept to himself. The other, the local children's animal shelter. My blood ran cold. They were targeting the weakest. I stood up so fast the chair nearly tipped over. "We move now. Get a team ready. Silent approach, no sirens. I want the shelter under watch immediately." Jamal and Rachel both nodded and ran off to prepare. I headed to my vehicle and radioed the station. "Activate Code Raven. Possible impersonator strike scheduled tonight. Deploy 2 intercept units and alert the sheriff's department across county lines. We're running a full containment." By nightfall, we had both sites quietly monitored. My team was split into 2. Jamal led the shelter unit with 2 deputies and a drone overhead, while I took Simmons's property with Brian riding shotgun beside me. He refused to stay home. "You think I'm going to sit on my porch while creeps mess with my neighbors?" He grumbled. As we drove towards Simmons' place, we kept the lights off, the vehicle coasting through the night like a shadow. The stars were dim, hidden by a blanket of clouds. That's when I saw them. 2 figures dressed in dark uniforms crouched beside Simmons' barn. One held a crowbar. The other was looking through a camera on a tripod, filming the fence and scribbling something on a clipboard. Brian whispered, "Unbelievable. These people don't stop." We parked half a block away, then approached on foot. I signaled to Brian to stay hidden behind a tree while I moved forward, crouched low. Closer, closer, until I was right behind them. I raised my flashlight and weapon and shouted, "Police, drop it now." They spun, startled, and the one with the crowbar swung at me. I dodged it, grabbed his wrist midair, twisted it behind his back, and slammed him to the ground in one fluid motion. The second one tried to run, but ran straight into Brian, who tripped him with his cane like a scene out of an old Western movie. Both suspects were subdued. Both were carrying new HOA eviction notices and laminated fake IDs with the Green Valley HOA seal, which we now knew was completely fabricated. As we cuffed them, one of them muttered something I'll never forget. "It's too late anyway. Denton's already in." I knelt down beside him, in where? But he clammed up and looked away. Back at the station, Rachel was waiting with an update that stopped my heart. "Chief," she said, her voice low, "remember how they spoofed that email to make? It looked like the county flagged your ranch?" "Yeah." She clicked a file open. "They didn't just spoof your records, they modified them. On paper, you now owe $38,000 in backdated HOA fees." I blinked. That's impossible. Not if they infiltrated the document vault. She turned her screen and showed me the dashboard. I saw a digital signature from my own name attached to a supposed HOA agreement dated 3 years ago. "I'd never signed anything like that," Rachel added. "They even faked a notary stamp. And unless we shut this down fast, you're going to get served with a lien." The room fell silent. Then I asked the question that was on all our minds. "Where's Denton?" Rachel's hands trembled slightly as she replied, "We just got facial recognition confirmation. He was at the protest outside our department yesterday. He was dressed as one of the cameramen." I stared at the wall for a long moment. "He's not just behind this. I said he's planning something big." Just then, boom, an explosion rocked the ground. The lights flickered. I grabbed my radio. "Report." "What was that?" Jamal's voice crackled through the speaker. "Chief, the animal shelter. It's on fire. We've got multiple Molotovs thrown in from the back fence. Suspects fled in a van. We're trying to get the animals out." I felt the ground vanish from under me. Denton had made his move. He didn't just want to scam us. He wanted to burn the whole system down. And the war was just getting started. See you in Chapter 5. And hey, drop a comment with your location. This story isn't just about one ranch anymore. It's about all of us. Let's spread the truth and never back down from standing up for our homes. The stench of smoke still clung to my uniform as I raced toward the children's animal shelter. Even before I arrived, I could see the flames licking at the sky in the distance, orange fingers reaching up like the devil himself had set a match to something pure. My radio crackled again, Jamal's voice strained but steady. "We've got the animals out. No casualties so far, but the back wing's gone, Chief. The fire hit the supply room and the back fence." I floored the gas. When I pulled up, the scene was chaos. Deputies and volunteers were scrambling, some carrying cages of barking dogs, others hosing down still smoldering crates. Children from the attached community program were being shepherded into vans, their faces stained with soot and tears. I found Jamal near the van directing fire crews. "They used Molotovs?" I asked out of breath. He nodded. 3, from what we could tell, tossed over the back fence. "And Chief, there were no cameras back there. They knew exactly where to strike." My heart clenched. This wasn't random. It was a message. An attack on innocence. An attack on everything good people in this county work to protect. I called Rachel. "Status." Her voice came through, shaken. "Chief, it's worse than we thought. They're not just targeting physical places anymore. Someone tried to lock me out of our own system." "What?" I was tracing another fake document, and suddenly the system froze. Files started disappearing in real time. "Whoever it is, they're inside." "Inside where?" She took a breath. "The county network, Chief. The mainframe. The one that links permits, land records, voting districts, court filings, everything." My blood ran cold. We had a full-blown digital breach, and as I stood there surrounded by crying children and flaming ruins, it hit me like a sledgehammer. This wasn't about HOA scams anymore. This was a full-scale takeover. By sunrise, we had firefighters dousing the last embers of the shelter. The air was thick with smoke and grief. The kids were safe, thank God, but they'd never forget this night. None of us would. We brought in backup IT security from Dallas. Rachel worked through the night, eyes bloodshot, hands trembling as she fought to seal the breach. "They've spoofed dozens of property deeds." "Chief," she whispered, "some people may have already paid fake liens. The system is riddled with false HOA contracts. It's like they rewrote an entire neighborhood into a lie." I stared at the screen, silent. "They even changed your voter registration," she added softly. "You're now listed as a resident of Denton's new development, Green Valley Estates." My jaw clenched. Denton wasn't just scamming anymore. He was rewriting reality. And if we didn't stop him now, he'd bury the truth under layers of lies so thick even we wouldn't know what was real. We planned a sting. Denton wanted to be public. Fine. He was planning a big community compliance rally on Friday, set to take place in an old abandoned mall just off the highway. His flyers were already spreading on social media. Flashy ads filled with promises of order, safety, and accountability. I saw through it. It was a recruitment event. He wanted to draw more people into his fake HOA, rally them, weaponize them. So I made a decision. We were going in quietly with body cams undercover. Rachel would be monitoring from the van. Jamal would act as security applicant. I dress as a landowner looking to join the HOA. Brian, bless his old bones, volunteered to be our decoy with his property dispute. We slipped in around 6 p.m., just as the event started. Denton stood at a podium wearing a crisp fake uniform with Green Valley Authority stitched on the chest. Around him stood rows of brainwashed followers, many wearing matching hats and badges. Some held banners like they were at a political rally. Denton raised his hand and spoke into a mic. "My friends, our movement is growing. Soon we will restore the values this country forgot." The crowd roared. I leaned toward Jamal and whispered, "Cult!" He nodded. We kept our eyes sharp. Denton pointed to a projector screen and clicked through photos. My ranch, Carol's home, even the children's shelter, now labeled non-compliant properties, enemies of order. he said, "and we will bring them into alignment by choice or consequence." That was enough. I tapped my mic now. The doors burst open. Deputies flooded in. FBI agents in full gear shouted commands. People screamed, scattering. Some ran. Others froze. Denton. He didn't flinch. He just raised his hands slowly, smiling. "You're too late, Chief," he said as I approached. "The files are already copied. The movement has already begun." I cuffed him myself. "Maybe," I said, "but it ends here." And just as I turned him around, one of his followers leapt from the crowd, swinging a steel baton straight toward my head. Everything went black. I woke up to the sound of beeping monitors, white lights, the hospital. Rachel was by my side, holding my hand, her face pale but determined. "You're okay," she said. "You were out cold. Cracked your skull, but no bleed. Mild concussion." I sat up slowly. My ribs ached. "Denton." She nodded. "In custody, facing federal charges, and we're unraveling his network now. He had a whole team. Lawyers, hackers, even a notary." I chuckled weakly. "Told you it was big." "You were right." Then her face darkened. "But Chief, the files he stole, they're still out there. And we don't know where he sent them." That's when the nurse entered holding a small envelope addressed to me. It had no stamp, just my name. Inside was a memory stick and a note that read, "You stopped the rally, but not the revolution." "D, what's on that memory stick?" "We'll find out in Chapter 6. But let me ask you something first. Where are you watching from? This isn't just a story. This is a reminder. Power can be stolen, but truth always fights back. Stay with me. It's not over yet." The memory stick felt like it weighed 50 pounds in my hand. I turned it over slowly, staring at the plain black plastic shell like it might explode at any second. The note from Denton still sat on the tray beside me, mocking me. "You stopped the rally, but not the revolution." I plugged the stick into Rachel's laptop as she stood beside me in the hospital room. The screen flickered, then opened a single encrypted folder, password protected, but not for long. Rachel cracked it in under 2 minutes. Inside were hundreds of files, video recordings, documents, scanned contracts, maps, DOSes, and one file labeled Phase 2 Activation. I opened it. There it was, a spreadsheet of over 3,000 names, addresses, phone numbers, income levels, home values, known vulnerabilities, even personal notes like recent widow, disabled vet, homeowner has no legal representation. I felt sick. They had been targeting people based on weakness, preying on grief, on fear, on good people who wouldn't fight back. Rachel scrolled further, jaw tightening. "Chief, look at the dates. These were organized attacks. They weren't random. They followed a strategy. Each neighborhood Denton's fake HOA targeted had been chosen for a reason. Either it was near development land he wanted to control, or had older residents unlikely to push back or sat in legal limbo due to zoning errors. And the next target? My blood froze, the county courthouse. They weren't planning to attack it with fire or fake badges. They were planning to sue it. A full-blown civil lawsuit filed by Denton under a shell company called Civic Order Coalition, claiming over 200 landowners were demanding a restoration of lawful HOA authority, all based on falsified evidence and fake voter petitions. It was all going down in 72 hours. If the court accepted the case, it could tie up land records, block sales, and freeze home titles in half the county, including my ranch. And if that happened, Denton wouldn't need Molotovs. He'd destroy people through paperwork. I checked out of the hospital that same evening, ignoring the nurse's protest. My head throbbed, my ribs ached, but I had no time to waste. Back at the station, we went into full mobilization. Rachel started compiling evidence of every fraud document Denton had planted. Jamal reached out to the judge's office and flagged the lawsuit before it could hit the court docket. Carol volunteered to call every homeowner she could and warn them personally. Brian, of course, brought sandwiches. By midnight, we had a plan. We were going to beat Denton at his own game, expose the lie with truth. The next morning, we held a public town hall meeting at the school gymnasium. Over 400 residents showed up. We played videos from the flash drive. We showed real versus fake documents. We put screenshots of the bogus Green Valley bylaws on a projector and tore them to pieces line by line. I stepped up to the podium. I don't care what fake badge a man wears or what title he gives himself. If he uses fear to take your home, he's not a leader. He's a criminal, and Denton is going to prison. The room erupted, but we weren't done. Jamal stepped forward with a folder. Here's what you need to know. If you received a notice, a citation, a lien, or a contract from Green Valley or any of its so-called branches, ignore them. They hold no legal power. Not in this county, not in this country. Cheers and applause followed, but the moment of real justice came when the state attorney general walked up beside me. She raised her mic. As of this morning, we've frozen every account connected to Denton's network. We've also issued arrest warrants for 6 of his associates, and we're launching a state-level task force to investigate fraudulent HOAs across Texas. The crowd exploded with applause. Some cried, some hugged, and some just stood there in stunned silence because they finally felt safe again. That night back at the station, I sat in my office alone. The lights were low, the walls were quiet. I stared at the last item on the flash drive, a personal video from Denton, recorded 2 days before the rally. He sat in a hotel room, calm and smug. "Chief Walker," he said into the camera, "you think you're the system, but the truth is systems rot. People don't trust police anymore, or courts or land records. All I did was show them a different way." He leaned in, eyes hard. "And if you think locking me up will stop this, you haven't been paying attention. I didn't start a scam. I started a movement. I shut the laptop slowly, then looked outside the window at the flag flapping in the night wind. No, Denton," I whispered. "You started a war, and we just won the first battle." But just as I turned off the light, Rachel burst into the room. "Chief," she held a paper. I took it from her and read the headline. "HOA coup attempt foiled in Texas, but similar group surfaces in Arizona." I looked up at her. She said it before I could. "It's spreading." I stood. "This isn't over." Next stop, Chapter 7, the final showdown. But before we head into the final battle, let me know where you're watching from. This story has grown bigger than our little town, bigger than Texas. It's a fight for truth, for every homeowner, for every neighbor, for every voice that refused to be silenced. Stay with me. We're almost there. The morning sun hadn't fully risen yet, but the station was already buzzing. Coffee cups in hand, eyes red from long nights. My team looked like a unit ready for war. Not the kind with guns, but one with keyboards, warrants, and truth. Rachel had just finished scanning the Arizona reports. The similarities were undeniable. Fake citations, phony badges, intimidation tactics. A new name, too. United Neighborhood Guardians, but the same twisted script. And worse, the leader of that group was a woman named Elaine Trass, Denton's former business partner. It was all connected. I gathered the team in the operations room. I didn't sugarcoat it. They're multiplying. I told them, we stopped Denton here, but they're franchising this scam in other states. Elaine's using his playbook, probably with copies of the files Denton distributed. And if we don't stop it now, it'll infect every corner of this country, Rachel added. We traced some encrypted emails Denton sent the night before the rally. He shared a full data packet with Elaine. Maps, scripts, fake forms, templates for citations, everything. Jamal grunted like a starter kit for fake HOA tyranny. I nodded. Exactly. A manual for fraud. But here's the thing. We had something Elaine didn't. We had proof. Video, audio, signed confessions from Denton's crew, and digital records of tampered databases. That gave us leverage. That gave us a head start. And we had one more surprise. Carol stepped forward, holding a thick stack of folders. "While y'all were running computers in courtrooms," she said with a sly smile, "Brian and I were knocking on doors." I raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" "Talking to the victims," she said. "Over 60 people who got fake notices agreed to testify. They're signing affidavit and organizing a class action lawsuit. We've got strength in numbers now." Brian chimed in from the corner, raising a biscuit in salute, and I brought muffins. The room chuckled, but we all knew what this meant. The people weren't afraid anymore. They were ready to fight back. We worked nonstop over the next 48 hours. We sent the evidence to authorities in Arizona and 3 other states that popped up on Denton's fake HOA registry. We shared video testimony from Texas victims. We released a nationwide PSA warning about impersonator HOAs, what to watch for, what to report, and how to push back. We used Denton's own manual against him, exposing every page of his scam online for public access. And then we turned the tables completely with legal help from the state AG and private attorneys. We filed a federal fraud and racketeering case against all known members of Denton's network, over 22 indictments, 6 arrests in other counties, and 1 final blow. We filed a civil suit freezing the bank accounts of every affiliate company Denton had touched, every shell company, every shady HOA front. We choked the whole operation dry. On the morning of the trial, I stood on the courthouse steps, flanked by Carol, Brian, Rachel, and Jamal. Reporters lined the sidewalk. Former victims stood proudly behind us. Denton shuffled into court in chains, his smirk finally gone. The judge didn't even let the defense open with a statement. He reviewed the evidence for 2 full hours in silence, then declared, "This court recognizes this operation not as a civil dispute, but as a calculated attack on property rights, public trust, and local governance. This is organized fraud. You are hereby sentenced." Denton's eyes flicked toward me. He finally realized he'd picked the wrong ranch. The judge continued to 35 years in federal prison with no chance of parole for at least 20. A cheer erupted outside the courthouse. Carol cried. Brian nodded. Rachel smiled through tears. Justice was served. But I wasn't celebrating yet, not until we made sure this would never happen again. Today, our county has an entirely new system in place. Every property owner receives verified digital ownership credentials directly from the courthouse. Every HOA must be registered and approved through a strict oversight board with open public access. And we launched a volunteer neighborhood watchdog program to teach people how to spot scams, speak up, and stay connected. Carol is the program's local coordinator now. Brian bakes muffins for every meeting. Rachel runs a website called HOA Hoaxbusters. As for me, I'm still the chief, but now I'm not just guarding against crime in alleys and back roads. I'm guarding freedom, the right for a person to own land, live in peace, and never be bullied behind a fake badge. People ask if I'll retire soon. Maybe, maybe not. But one thing's certain. If another fake HOA ever dares knock on someone's gate again, I'll be there. Badge polished, truth ready, and I'll answer that gate the same way I did before. You picked the wrong ranch, and now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Have you seen anything like this in your town? Drop it in the comments and share the story, because someone somewhere might be staring at a fake badge tomorrow, and they deserve to know the truth today. Stay alert, stay kind, and never ever give up your land without a fight.